Hello everyone, welcome back again to Excel with Ugo. In today's video, we'll be looking at Microsoft Excel's if function. Whenever you're looking for a formula to satisfy certain conditions or criteria in Microsoft Excel, the if function can come in very handy. With the if function, you have the ability to define the perfect response you want when your conditions are met and when they are not. When the response is a text, ensure they are put in quotation marks. In this video, you'll be learning how to use the if function alone. You'll be learning how to use the nested if function, that is, using an if function inside an if function. You'll also be learning how to use the if function with other logical functions, such as the AND function or the OR function. I'll be dropping the template of this exercise in the description box so that you can practice along while watching this video. So let's get started. So this is a hypothetical data of a store that is willing to give out promo codes as a way of appreciation to their existing customers since the year is coming to an end, and only those customers that meet the conditions put in place by this company are eligible for the codes. Here are several conditions we'll be using as examples in this video, and the number one example will be used to explain the single condition of the if function, as this happens to be the easiest condition you would find when using the if function. The first condition says only corporate customers are eligible for promo codes. Therefore, we would use the if function to identify from our array of data those customers that are corporate and those that are not. We will start with the equal sign, then type if, then open brackets. The first argument there, which is the logical text, is the cell that contains our customer type, which in our case is cell C6. And basically what we are saying is that if this particular customer is a corporate customer, then yes, they are eligible for the codes, otherwise they are not. Because corporate is a text, then we'll put it in quotation marks. That is, what we are saying is if cell C6 is equals corporate, we'll put a comma, then the value if true, which is the second argument, should be a yes, and that should also be in quotation marks. And the value if false, that is if it is not a corporate customer, then it should be a no. And because it's also a text, we'll put it in quotation marks. We'll close the brackets and press enter. I'll use the autofill handle to copy the formula down, and we can see that those that are corporate are giving us a yes as a response, meaning that they are eligible for the promo codes, and those that are not are giving us a no. I would like to use conditional formatting to highlight the cells that contains yes to make it stand out. So in this box, I'll type yes. Then let me change the color to say a green color, and this is better for me. And we can see that all the cells that contains yes are highlighted green. So this explains the single condition of the if function. Let's look at another example. Let's say this time the company decides to give promo codes to customers that are both corporate customers and has a high ranking of 1 and 2. And if you look above, you will see that there are thresholds this company has put in place to identify customers that would be ranked as high or low based on the sales they have done within this year. Basically what they are saying is that within this year 2023, from January till date, using their sales figure as a benchmark, customers who has done more than 100,000 should be ranked as number 1. For those who have done between 50 and less than 100,000 should be ranked as number 2. For customers who has done between 10,000 and less than 50,000 should be ranked as number 3, and those that did less than 10,000 should be ranked as number 4. And because of these multiple conditions, here we'll be applying the nested if function, that is using an if function inside an if function. See how it works. We'll start with the equal sign, type if, and open the bracket. So our logical test here would be the cell that contains the sales figure, which in this case is cell F6. Basically, what we are saying is that for every customer whose sales figure is greater than and equal to 100,000 should be ranked as 1. So I can choose to type out the 100,000 in the formula and move on, but I rather prefer to reference the cell that contains the figure 100,000. Reason being that this template can still be used in future years, and there's a possibility that the company can change its threshold to a different amount. So instead of having to come into the main formula to start changing the amounts based on the threshold, it is more efficient to have where the threshold criteria is stated out, so that when there is a change, that change can be done separately. Let's continue with our formula. I'll select the cell I3 and lock it with F4. Remember to lock your cell with F4 so that when you are copying the formula down, it will respond accordingly. Then put a comma. If this is correct, the value I would like it to return is the number 1. Again, I can choose to type 1, but I would rather prefer to select or reference the cell that contains 1, just in case the company changes its threshold in later years. Then I'll lock it with F4 and continue with a comma. The next argument, which is the value if false. Here, where it is asking for value if false, because I still have multiple conditions and I'm not done with this formula yet, I'll be typing another if function to enable me accommodate other conditions. Then type if and open bracket, then go back again to select the cell that contains the sales figure, and this time around I'm saying if this cell is greater than equal to 50,000, I'll lock it with F4. Then let the returning value, that is if it is true, be 2. Select the cell again that contains 2, lock it with F4, then put a comma. And here again we'll repeat the same thing. Where it is asking for value if false, we'll type another if function. I'll type my if and open a bracket, go back again to the sales figure, select it, and I'm saying this time around if this figure is greater than equal to 10,000, the value I want it to return, that is if that condition is true, should be 3. I'll reference the cell that contains 3, lock it with F4 and put a comma. And this time the value if false, because this is my last condition, I don't need to define it by putting another if function. Rather, I'll just go ahead and select my value if false, which is the cell that contains the number 4, because technically if the customers do not meet any of these criteria that we have just addressed, then they will fall amongst those that will do below 10,000 and ranked as 4th. Then we'll close our bracket. Please note that when you use the nested if, that is using more than one ifs in the formula, the closing bracket is going to be the number of ifs you used within that formula. Here we use 3 ifs within this formula and we are expected to close our bracket 3 times. But even if you did not close the bracket, the good thing with Microsoft Excel is that it helps you calculate the number of brackets that is required to be closed with, such that when you press enter, it brings out an error message and all you need to do is to accept the correction by clicking yes, so long as the only issue the formula has is the closing bracket. So you don't need to waste your time counting the number of ifs you used in your formula. And once we get our results, what we need to do is to copy it down by using the autofill handle across other cells. Looking at the syntax, you will notice that at the time I was creating this formula, I did not consider the other condition of each threshold. For example, for any customer to be ranked as second, he's supposed to have a sales between 50,000 and less than 100,000. But when I was doing the formula, I only picked greater than equal to 50,000 and I did not do anything about the less than 100,000. This is possible because Excel recognizes what I was trying to do and sets a base based on my initial condition. Remember, the company says any customer who has done 100,000 and above should be ranked as first, and anyone who does between 50,000 and less than 100,000 should be ranked as second. So because I have already created my first condition to be greater than equal to 100,000, then the second one would automatically be having 100,000 as the base. That means at the time I'm doing greater than equal to 50,000, the less than 100,000 wouldn't be necessary because Excel already placed the 100,000 I've used in the first condition as a base. Therefore, it will not go beyond the 100,000. Same applies to the third and fourth condition. The previous condition becomes a base for the next. I hope this makes sense. Let's move forward. Since we have been able to successfully rank our customers according to their level of sales, let's take a look at the second example, which says only corporate customers who have a ranking of 1 and 2 are eligible for promo codes. In other words, it's not enough for you to be a corporate customer. You must also be a high-ranking corporate customer. We'll start with the equal sign, and here we'll be using the AND function alongside the IF function because we have two conditions to be met. So we'll type if, then open bracket, and we'll type AND first before starting with our formula, then open bracket again. The logical one now will be the cell that contains the type of customers because we want our customer to be corporate customers. So we'll pick that cell, which is cell C6 equals corporate. Remember to put your corporate in quotation marks because it is a test. Then we'll put a comma. Then the next condition, which is the fact that our corporate customers must be ranked either as 1 or 2. We'll now go ahead to pick the cell that contains the ranking. Then we can either say less than 3 or we'll say less than equal to 2, as this would mean the same thing. Then we can close the bracket because we've met those two conditions. Then we'll now put a comma. This time around, the same value if true. What do we want it to bring out if these conditions are met? It will say yes, and otherwise, that is value if false, we'll say no. Remember to put it in quotation marks. We'll close our bracket, then press enter. Then we copy the formula down. You can see that the number of years has reduced and our conditional formatting has also been adjusted accordingly. The first one, although he has a ranking of 2, he is getting a no because he is not a corporate customer. And for this one, he is getting a yes because he has a ranking of 1 and he's also a corporate customer. Same with this, he has a ranking of 1 and is also a corporate customer. So these responses are well aligned based on the conditions that are put in place, and that's how this works. Now going to our third example, it says either they are corporate customers or they have a ranking of 1 and 2. So what we need to do is to go back to our previous formula and change where we have an and, we'll change it to or because the condition says either or. With this, we are saying if the customer has a high ranking and is not a corporate customer, he's eligible for the quote, or if he's a corporate customer and he doesn't have a high ranking, he's also eligible for the quote. Then we'll press enter and copy the formula down. We can see that our response has also been adjusted accordingly based on the new condition that has been put in place. So this person who is not a corporate customer but has a high ranking gets a yes because he's eligible for the quote, while this other person, although he is a corporate customer but he has a low ranking, also makes him eligible based on the condition which says either they are corporate or they have a high ranking. So if they satisfy one of those conditions, then they are eligible for the codes. And we can also see that if you scroll down, the formula applies. No matter how large your data is, it will be affected. So I would like my threshold to be visible when I scroll down. So let me freeze with Alt WFF. So the moment I scroll down, I will still see the threshold for the ranking. Now going to our fourth example, it says customers with high ranking are automatically eligible for the codes. However, if the customer has a low ranking, for him to be eligible, he must be a corporate customer and must have been a customer for more than 3 years. So this has more like 3 conditions in one. In other words, we are saying for a customer to be eligible for the codes, he is either a high-ranking customer or he is a low-ranking customer who is both a corporate customer and has been in existence for more than 3 years. Here we'll be using both the or and the and logical function within the if function. We'll start with the if, open bracket and type or, and open the bracket again. So logical 1 here will be the cell that contains the customer ranking, because we are saying if the customer has a high ranking, then he's eligible. So we'll pick that cell, which is cell H6, less than equal to 2. Then we'll put a comma. And this time around, we are saying if he's not a high ranking customer, then he should both be a corporate customer and has been a customer for more than 3 years. So here we'll now be typing our and function, because 2 conditions follow afterwards. Type our and open the brackets. So here we'll select the cell that contains the customer type, which is cell C6, and we'll say equal to corporate. So after our quotation mark, we'll put a comma. Then the next condition is the cell that contains the number of years. We'll say greater than 3. Then we'll close the brackets twice, because we have both the or and the and function inside this formula. We'll put a comma and we'll say value if true should be a yes. Then value if false should be a no. We'll close our bracket and press enter. Then we can copy the formula down. You can see that the result has changed accordingly in line with our new condition. You can see that this customer is a high ranking customer, and that makes him eligible for the code, same as the second customer. Let's look for a customer with a low ranking. So this customer has a low ranking, however he is eligible because he is both a corporate customer and has been a customer for more than 3 years, which in this case is 4 years, and that's why he is having a yes. Let's take a closer look at the formula. So the first part of the formula started with or, because we are saying either the customer is a high ranking customer or he's a low ranking customer. And the second part that has an and is saying while he's low ranking, he must both be corporate and must have been a customer for more than 3 years. Our last example says only to customers that are not consumers. In other words, if you are not a consumer, you are either a home office customer or a corporate customer to be eligible for the code. There are 2 ways we can solve this example. One, we can choose to use the not function within the if function. We'll start with the equal sign, then type if, and open the bracket. Then we'll type not, open the bracket again. Remember, we are saying the only customers that are not consumers are eligible for the codes. So we'll be selecting the cell that contains the customer type, which in this case is cell C6, equals to consumers, and we'll put the consumers in quotation marks. Then we'll close the bracket. So the value if true is going to be a yes, and the value if false will be a no. So every other person gets a code except those that are consumers. Then we close the bracket and press enter. We can now copy the formula down. and we can see those that are not consumers, which is both the corporate and the home office customers, are having yes because they are eligible for the quote. But customers who are consumers has a no as the response because they are not eligible for the quote. If you don't want to use the not function, you can use the or function, because we are saying if the customers are not consumers, they can either be corporate or home office. So we'll start with the if, open the bracket and type or, open the bracket again. Then we'll go ahead to select the cell that has the customer type, and we'll say equal to corporate, put it in quotation marks and put a comma. The logical 2 will still be the same cell, cell C6, and this time around equals to home office. We put it in quotation mark and close the bracket. So the value if true will give us a yes, and value if false should give us a no. We close the bracket and press enter. So we can copy down the formula, and you can see that we are having the same result just as when we use the not function. This is just the same thing being done in different ways. So this is how you can go about it, but I prefer to use the not function for a case like this because it seems a bit more straightforward. I hope you enjoyed this section just like I did. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comment section and I'll be answering all of it. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe, like and share this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in other videos. Bye for now.